Today's lesson, and what you should be able to do by the end of this video, is to be able to find the mean of a set of data. The word mean is a weird one in the English language. It has many different meanings. Pun intended. I'm not talking about being mean out on the playground, shoving somebody, or throwing a ball at their face. I am not using the word mean as in like the definition of a word. For example, like the meaning of the word student is a person who attends school. But I am talking about the word mean in relation to a data set. And what I want you to think about when you think about the word mean is that we are finding the average. So in order to do this, we need some data. We're going to use that same question that we used in the last lesson. That is, how many pets does a typical student in Mr. Peterson's class have? Let's start with only 5 responses to this question. While it is not necessary for you to sort your responses when trying to calculate the mean, it is going to be important that you can sort data. So it is a good step to practice and to get in the habit of doing. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got 0, 0, 1, 5, 6. Now that we have our data sorted, we are going to find the mean. The first step in finding the mean is we need to add up all of the numbers, meaning we just need to add up all of the numbers. So let's take a look at what we got. Here is all of our numbers nice and sorted, so we are going to add them together. And we could write this out as a normal addition problem. We could do 0 plus 0 plus 1 plus 5 plus 6. 0 and 0. 0. Add 1, 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. So our total is 12. The second step in calculating the mean is that we need to divide by the count, or the number of responses that we had. So let's take a look back at our data. We had a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. 5 responses. So we're going to divide our number that we added together by 5. Remember that we got 12 when we added all of our numbers together. So our final step would be to take 12 and divide that by 5. 5 does not go into 1. Does 5 go into 12? It does 2 times. We get 10. 2. Cover this later in the year. Add a 0. Bring it down. Add a decimal to our problem. Bring our 0. 4 goes into 20 4 times. So our mean in this case would actually be 2.4. Not important right now, but I thought that I should clean up my long division because we're going to cover that later in the year, and we might come back to this problem. We're going to check Mr. Peterson's math using a calculator. Let's go ahead and see here. 12 divided by 5, we get 2 4/10. So we have calculated the mean for this data set. Remember, when we talk about mean, we're talking about average when we're using it in math. It is okay to get a decimal answer, and it is okay to leave it as a decimal. So in response to the question, what is the average number of pets that a student has in Mr. Peterson's class? Well, in this class, there would have been an average of 2 and about a half a pet. Can't really have a half a pet, but that's what we got for our average. I want to give you just one more example. I'm not going to be as detailed with the walkthrough this time, but I want you to see that you can get an answer that is a whole number, as well as I want you to see what happens when we have more responses. Let's remember that if we are trying to calculate the mean, We are taking the sum of all of the numbers, and we are dividing by the number of responses. This data set is a little bit different, and if we take a look, there are actually 8 responses as to when there were 5 last time. So we are going to divide by 8 this time. So we're going to add these things together. 7 and 7, I know that's 14. 14 plus 5 is 19. Plus 2 is 21. Plus 2 is 23. Plus 1 is 24. 24. So we're going to take that number, 24. That's the sum of all of our numbers, and we're going to divide by the number of responses. And if you remember, we had 8 responses. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but all of these things are the same. They all mean 24 divided by 8. So let's go ahead and calculate this out. 24 divided by 8 equals 3. Here's me just copying that down onto my piece of paper, however I chose to write my division problem. And you might be asking, so what does that number mean? It means that the average number of pets for a student to have in Mr. Peterson's class is 3 pets. So if there is one thing to remember today, one thing to write down in your notebook, it is this right here. The sum of all of our numbers divided by the number of responses is equal to our statistical mean, or we like to call it the average.